Welcome and bienvenidos, Big Design 2020 conference participants. My name is Michael Gibson, and today, along with my colleague Keith Owens, we're going to talk to you about arguing for less user-friendly futures, using design-led research to guide desirable design outcomes. Keith and I are both professors in visual communication design at the University of North Texas's College of Visual Arts and Design. What we hope that you'll come away from this experience with are some strategies and some tactics for thinking differently and then behaving differently as you engage in the design processes that guide user-experienced and interactive design-focused processes that allow you to design products, services, and systems. If you've got further questions about what we mean when we say think differently and behave differently as you engage in these kind of design processes, you'll just have to watch the rest of the presentation. The big idea, the primary reason that we are making this presentation to you today is to talk about a why-centered approach to design decision-making processes rather than a how-centered approach to design decision-making processes. In short, we're going to make a big argument for why over how. What we mean by that is that why-based decision-making considers the ramifications of how our features, how our components, how our systems cause people to behave, and the head of behaving think the way that they do. Why-based decision-making considers effects on resources. It considers effects on social and economic and public policy change. How tends to be more rooted in how is this user interface going to work? What colors are we going to choose? What are primary development responsibilities for making sure that certain kinds of components work the way that they do? That's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the why, again, the 30,000-foot view, the considering of broad consequences view.
Following on what Michael started with, I'd like to talk about three big ideas that we think you should take away from this presentation. The first, why is it crucial for designers to be involved in all stages of research that guide project and product development? The second big idea, why is it important for designers to work more effectively to curb what we call click button consumption? And the third idea, why question formulation is essential to high-value centered design.
What Keith and I are going to be sharing with you for the next few minutes is meant to be further shared by you with those who you work with and for, those that you care most about, as well as students, of course, and whatever other collaborators that you deal with in the course of your work. One of the most important things to understand about design-led research, and really any kind of evidence-based research, is that the knowledge that comes out of that research is supposed to be generalizable. That means you're supposed to be able to share it. Other people are supposed to be able to use it as they engage, in this case, in user experience design and interaction design rooted decision-making processes.
A simple but effective way to begin considering these three big ideas is to think about, as a designer, the meaning inherent in some word pairings that we're going to offer. These pairings are loaded. Words have meaning insofar as they can guide the way we think about things, how we approach projects, and how we affect other people's behavior.
Click button consumption is what enables us to operate an interface or a feature on an interface and procure some kind of product or service relatively quickly and, to our perception, with relative ease. So if I feel like I really need a combination of Justin Bieber duct tape and a mint chocolate Twinkie, I've got to click my interface and I'm going to have those things in my hands relatively soon. What we're asking you to examine here as user experience and interaction designers is the idea that, well, just because you can do something does that mean that you should? And just because you've done something successfully, enabling my procurement of my Justin Bieber duct tape and my mint chocolate chip Twinkies, maybe that success isn't really that successful. Maybe it really is yielding a failure. Hey, how much fuel oil in a ship did it take to get those items to me? How much jet fuel did it take? How hard did a worker in an Amazon warehouse have to work very, very quickly to make that order be realized for me? So I think the bottom line thing to think about here is what happens when something that we deem as a success turns into a failure.
Another pair we could think about is the word can versus the word should. Can really embodies what we might call amoral thinking. We're focused generally on how to get things done without considering maybe some of the broader ramifications that might occur. Should is a moral judgment, a word that might begin to say, why are we doing things again? What might occur as the result of our actions? And more importantly, is this something we want to pursue, or we should stop and ask ourselves some deeper questions?
User experience and interaction design really do have a moral component. Apps that we have designed really successfully to help people gather in social situations are failing miserably as people gather together in the midst of a global pandemic.
This pair is probably familiar to lots of people who are working in UX design. Personas versus people. Personas obviously are what we call fake people, or descriptions of users that we might use to tailor particular experiences for them. Oftentimes, however, we start to build personas that have sort of a stock feeling, a generic feeling, and they don't necessarily represent real people. As a result, we might end up with solutions that are efficient and possibly even effective, but do they really solve the user's needs in ways that are authentic, durable, and sustainable for them?
As designers, we've been taught and we've practiced that sustainability is a really good thing. Sustainability means that things are going to be with us for a while. And we'd like to counter that and instead suggest that designers start to design and think about ways of facilitating resurgence. Here's an example of what I mean when I'm talking about that. If we use cloth masks in the midst of a global pandemic, these are things that are going to not wind up in a landfill nearly as quickly as things like paper masks will. And for that matter, anything else that's supposed to be disposable. We as designers bear a great deal of responsibility for what winds up in oceans and in landfills and in all kinds of other places where you don't want disposable things to wind up.
Inclusive versus exclusive, another interesting pair. As designers, we're trained to design for particular groups of people, and that's great, because if you're designing for everyone, you're really designing for no one. The problem is, if we're so focused on one particular group, are we ignoring the needs and desires of another? So, what we have to think about is being less tribal in our design approach and more inclusive of all the different types of people that might be at the table.
The last word pairing we have for you is freedom and willful ignorance. More specifically, freedom does not equal willful ignorance. As user experience and interaction designers, we have a great deal of freedom to engage in broadly informed decision making. It doesn't absolve us of the responsibility of asking why, of favoring why over how, of asking, golly, if we do this, what effect will it have, short term, long term, socially, technologically, economically, politically?